It can be pretty challenging playing cruisers in World of Warships sometimes, especially on these open maps, since there's not really anywhere to hide, and battleships have a lot of range and a lot of overmatch. So in today's video, I want to talk about making a massive mistake and still having a good game, because it is possible, at least at higher tiers. Before we get to that mistake though, I want to talk a little bit about lower tier cruisers, and I think an interesting buff for them could be to add one heal. You can't take Superintendent to add more heals, but just a single heal on tier 7, tier 8 cruisers could look very, very interesting. One of my favorite cruisers at mid-tier is the Atago, and part of it comes down to its healing ability. That ship doesn't have the best DPM, it does not have the best range or armor, but its ability to heal and come back from mistakes, or even just allowing it to play a little bit more aggressive, taking a little more damage, is really nice. And I wish I had that even a little bit on some of the other lower to mid-tier cruisers. I really do think that mistakes can happen. There's a lot of RNG involved with battleships on both sides. For me, it's very frustrating on both sides. Being a battleship player, finding a broadside cruiser and nothing happens, that's pretty frustrating. But being a cruiser and being angled away properly and then an overmatching salvo comes in and nukes half your health, that's also pretty frustrating. And that's why I think healing is so nice to have. It reduces a lot of that frustration on the cruiser player's end and potentially could allow for a little better accuracy against broadsides. The overmatch discussion is something I don't want to have right now. There's a lot of issues with it, but it's really kind of necessary given that an angled cruiser that you can't overmatch is basically impossible to kill. See Petro for an example of that. But in this game, I'm getting kind of bored, honestly. My damage output is all right. I think Yoshino probably should do a little better than this at range. I think my aim is just a bit of an issue right now. I tend not to play the Yoshino all that much since it's just a massive Zao. I really do enjoy the Zao playstyle much more, where I can use my concealment to play a little closer, push up to destroyers, and still burn things down as efficiently as a Yoshino. The torpedoes are kind of a fun meme at 20 kilometers, but they're not the most useful things in the world. I really don't think that the Yoshino is the best ship in the game at all, and probably not worth getting as your first ship for coal. For me, it's just a little bit too passive, and the reason it has to be passive is the armor. It's 30 millimeters, which is better than the Azuma, but you don't get that fast cooldown heal like you do on the Azuma, and 30 millimeters isn't all that impressive anymore these days. So even though it has a decent HP pool, and the guns are actually surprisingly good, having a pretty fast reload for the size, it's just forced to play pretty far back. And you see, even with reload mod, we have 21, 22 kilometers of range, and we even get a spotter plane yet. Range mod spotter plane Yoshino is not very useful, but it's kind of hilarious how much range you can actually get out of this ship. Not the most useful, but pretty funny. So here I'm gonna make a few crucial mistakes, and that mainly involves pushing in and pushing into the middle of the map. You'll notice that I was staying angled to the middle of the map earlier on in this game. I was constantly shooting at the enemy ship that was closest to the border, allowing me to angle to the bulk of the enemy team, just like we're doing now, except we're pushing in. The problem with this is that if I'm in trouble, I have to turn away, and turning out means I show broadside to the entire enemy team, and that's what is gonna happen here. And I'm sure, assuming I made the thumbnail like I'm intending to, the white bar is going to be seen on my HP bar, and it's not gonna be pretty, but we're still gonna have an excellent game out of this one. And I want to talk about the mindset and being okay with making mistakes, because you can still come back into a lot of these games. Having a heal is a big part of that on these higher tier cruisers, allowing for those comebacks. So here we go, the turn of death. Sometimes the shells drop low when you turn out, but this time, well, Yoshino has a giant citadel, so there it is. Oh my goodness, the entire thing basically turned white. Oh, I wasn't happy in the moment, but I did not give up. This still can be a really, really good game. I just didn't play passive enough. I got a little bit too bored and tried to push in a little bit too early with my Yoshino here. So we're in a bit of trouble now, but we do act as a bit of bait here, since nothing makes enemy battleships confident like hitting an enemy cruiser for basically all their health. I know that from experience. So they're going to start pushing in now, and that is where the Yoshino is extremely strong. Where there's battleships pushing in, you can angle, and you can stay running at relatively full speed, and you don't outrange the enemy battleships. So that's what we're going to do here. We were on about 60k damage, and we're going to turn that into near 200k later on in this game. And it's going to happen very, very quickly. And that's where Yoshino really is at its best, when these battleships are pushing in. And you can see already just the value in having healing on a cruiser. I made a massive mistake, got hugely punished for it, and yet I still have 20k HP instead of having, well, around 11, even under 10,000 HP. And that's why I really think some of those mid-tier cruisers at tier 7 and tier 8 could just benefit from one heal to allow them to make that mistake and still feel like they can play the game. Just a bit of a quality of life improvement that I doubt will happen, but I think it could be very, very interesting. I, of course, on this ship have plenty of healing, and we're going to use as much of it as we possibly can, hopefully using these heals on cooldown, as long as, you know, we're getting some value out of them. As the enemy team pushes in, we're starting to get a few more fires on our hits. We were getting a little bit poor fire chance earlier on in this game, so it's nice to see a salvo and a fire and a salvo and a fire. It might not be the most realistic thing to have happen, but it certainly feels like that when I'm playing a battleship and a Yoshino is fighting me. This Montana, of course, we can auto bounce his armor piercing if we're angled properly. But the Proisen definitely overmatches us, so the goal is to avoid his shells as much as possible. Yeah, 7,000 HE damage and a fire. The damage output is good. It's just the platform that is a little bit weak to me. Or at least, it just doesn't quite fit with my playstyle. I do like to play a little closer and be a little more aggressive, as many of you know. Another good fire. As soon as people are damage conning, we are trying to light up more fires. That way they last the entire duration. I'm even trying to use my torps here and there, but again, I'm not getting greedy for those front torpedoes, since you do have 2 launchers per side, but you have to show a ton of broadside to get the forward-facing launcher off. So we're not getting greedy again this game. We already got punished for getting greedy completely earlier on, so it's important to play a little bit passive. And you'll notice that even though we lost a huge amount of HP, we were able to heal back only some of it. And that, I think, is a nice balancing factor to getting citadeled and having these heals still. So I make a huge mistake, I can get a little bit of my healing back, a little bit of my health back, but not all of it. I'm still probably, I believe I actually use this heal right away. Yeah, I have so many heals left that I may as well get a little bit of value out of the healing right now. I'm gonna heal back, what, 7k HP? That's more than enough to get out of this jam, I hope. We're already up to 160k HP. There's our Witherer, finally getting that those fires burning on these battleships. And our friendly tier 9 French battlecruiser there, I don't know how he's lived through this long, holding on for dear life on this island. But we're going to try and keep him alive with hopefully taking out this Proisen and this Montana. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about adding just maximum one heal to a few of these mid-tier cruisers. I think some of them might be a little bit too good if you added that, but it would add a nice forgiving factor to a lot of these cruisers that, well, if you get Devstruck, it kind of sucks, doesn't it? Without having any ability to come back into the game. There's a nice little arsonist on that Monty, so yeah, the fires were definitely doing work. So I think it could be interesting, but at least at tier 10, we do have some heals on these cruisers, so if you make a dumb mistake like I did in this game, you can still come back and have a relatively decent result. As for the build on the Yoshino, it's just my standard Japanese cruiser commander where, in fact, I'm taking heavy HE. The HE hits so hard that these extra little bit of damage feels really, really good. I know it does reduce our concealment or make our concealment much worse, but This ship doesn't have the armor to be playing around 12, 13 kilometers anyway, so I don't personally feel much difference between the concealments, but that would be up to you. I don't think this one's very necessary, but having concealment, having superintendent for those extra heals is very nice. Survivability expert giving us a little more HP to hang on when, you know, hopefully you guys aren't making the mistakes I did in this video, but I see a lot of Yoshinos getting dev struck, so I know that having a little bit more HP to hang on can be useful. Adrenaline Rush is hugely valuable in these situations where we're hanging on for dear life and getting even more DPM out of our guns. Priority target, helping us to know when people are targeting us, although going flat broadside to the entire enemy team, it's a safe assumption that the entire enemy team is going to be aiming at us. I take Eye in the Sky. I really like this on cruisers where I have a spotter plane because I tend to not want the full duration of the spotter plane, but I want them back up more often. I just want that initial spotter plane duration, maybe the first 30 seconds to 45 seconds of a spotter plane, because by that time they're either already out of my spotter plane range or they're already inside my main gun's range, so I don't really need the rest of the spotter plane. That's why I like this skill, but certainly not a necessary one. Gun feeder is excellent. I haven't been able to fit in Grease the Gears. Maybe not taking heavy HE and sap and taking a few more valuable skills might be a good way to do things, but this is the way I have done it for now. The Yoshino upgrades I think are pretty standard. I'm actually spotting aircraft mod. It results in a decent spotting plane, honestly. 65-second duration is more than enough, and it reloads at least in under 2 minutes, so I can get more value out of them instead of that, what, 3-minute long reload or even longer? Yeah, it's hard to make use of spotter planes. That's why, again, I enjoy this one. I don't think it's really necessary. It fits my playstyle though. But that's the Yoshino, and a massive mistake. But we managed to come back and have a decent game anyway. So let me know what you think, especially about that idea for a few mid-tier cruisers to get just one heal to allow them a little easier to come back after making a mistake. Personally, I really value healing on cruisers, and I tend not to play cruisers if they don't have a heal anymore, since I tend to play at higher tier anyway, but mid-tier cruisers kind of feel bad to me. Maybe it's because I'm so used to heals at this point. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.